So here I have a Parrotia persica that I have separated an air layering of. So this was up here. Now you can see, interestingly, that the top portion of the air layer seems to have adopted its autumn colour, which was pretty much evident from about a month of starting the process. So it went into this state almost straight away. And I've had it in a mixture of locations between sun and partial shade and shade, but in the end I just put it in full shade. However, these leaves, they look like they're about to fall, but they're pretty well attached, and you can see that some of the lower leaves have got more green in, which I think was a result of me adding water to the moss ball. So I was a bit nervous that it was too dry, so I put some water in, and I think that resulted in the leaves greening up a bit. Now, the parent tree, I have taken off the wire, which had started to bite in a bit, but it's not scarred too badly, and it's actually just now starting to turn into its autumn colour. So I'm doing this backwards, but I ran out of time last night, so what's going to follow now is just the process of separating these two trees.
I didn't make a video of the air layering of this tree, but I do have some photographs, so I'm going to include them here so that we have the full journey of the tree from beginning to end. So here you can see the part of the tree where I'm going to take the air layering from. The next photo is quite interesting. So you can see a region of the trunk where something has been taken away, but it still looks a little bit barky. Now, I don't have the relevant botanical knowledge to explain exactly what's happening here, but at this point I'd taken away a very thin layer of material, and I think it was probably, I don't know how correctly to refer to this, but the surface layer of the bark, but not the entirety of the bark. I remember that being very, very, very thin. Now, I think with air layering, until you get experience, you're kind of feeling your way through it a little bit, and you can always take off more, but you can't put something back that you've taken. So it seemed clear that I'd not got through the layers that I needed to get through. Ultimately, to get to past the cambium and to the xylem. So I took off some more material, and you can see here now this looks much more like you're expecting to see. So I'd actually there's actually quite a lot more material that came off. So the first layer was very, very, very thin indeed, and this felt a bit more substantial. So the expectation here is that I've taken off the phloem, well, I've taken off the bark, I've taken off the phloem, and I've taken off the cambium, so that we're only left with the xylem, which means that the tree will still be able to transport water up the trunk past this point via the xylem, but it will not be able to transport energy or sugar past that point because there's no channel through which it can travel. And then finally, this is the finished article.
So this is progress on my Parrotia persica Vanessa cultivar air layering progress. Now the root system is not as developed as with the Metasequoia, but I can see roots coming through the bottom, and as it's getting closer to winter, I think it's probably better for these roots to be protected in a pot than in this moss ball. And at the bottom of the ball it's a little bit uncovered, so I'm going to take this off and plant it. So here's a little close-up of the tree. So the Vanessa cultivar is one that is advocated by Green Island Gardens. I can't remember the name of the lady, but it's a fastigiate form of Parrotia persica, which is usually very spreading. I'll test my editing skills and show a picture of a specimen in Kew Gardens, which is quite awesome. You can see there how spreading it is, and the point of this one is it grows in a straight line. So I've planted this at an angle in the pot, and that, to be honest, there's a few points where this could be air layered, so I've gone at the top. So it's not looking as healthy in the top portion, but it has been in this condition pretty much since the air layering was started. So it's almost been in its autumn colour the whole time, which would suggest to me that it's not getting the correct spectrum of nutrients, which would make sense as it's just planted in moss. Now I've noticed some of the leaves have started going a bit greener recently. Not that one. In fact, well, we can see here it's a bit greener. But in fact, the ones lower down. Here we are. A bit greener. But we can also see some sizzling. Now, this has actually been in the shade for the last month because I was worried about it. But look, if we look in here, you can see roots. So the expectation is, if this is going to survive the winter, it needs to go into a pot. So I'm going to unwrap it, cut it, and then put it straight in a pot. I'm not going to try and do any work with unraveling the roots or straightening them out. But just have a quick look at the rest of the tree. So I wired it before I planted it, just to get some movement in those branches. So I'm going to take this wire off. And then I think it can probably be air layered again, perhaps around this point here. So I'm actually just going to cut it now, and then I can unwrap it when it's off. It's interesting, you can see how that sprung. Recently, about 2 weeks ago, I added some water into here because I was concerned that it wasn't getting enough liquid moisture. And then I noticed that planting angle seems to have changed and it was hanging down more. But I think that was just the weight of the moss ball. So yeah, so that sprung back up again. All right, so let's unwrap this and see what we've got. Feels very wet. Despite all this rocking, the leaves seem to be quite attached to the plant, which is a good sign. If they started falling off now, it would make me think that it was under greater stress, but they're taking quite a hammering, and when I moved it, I hit it a couple of times because it was in a dense place. But it smells good, but it doesn't smell of anything. Only one side, absolutely sodden. We're going to take out a bit. So that, I mean, that is awesome. That's a total success. Now, my understanding is that this species doesn't air layer well. So I think it's Fiona from Green Island Gardens has been trying to air layer plants in her own collection due to challenges to get the stock. And I wonder how she is doing. So this is just awesome. I'm so happy with this. So I'm just going to stick this in a pot. So I've got some Melcourt Silver Grow left over from the job. So this is going to be my main material, which is I think the best quality peat-free compost you can get, basically. So that is going to form the majority of my soil mix, but I am going to mix it with a little bit of grit as well, as I suppose what I'm doing is overplanting this, and we don't want it to be too wet. So at the bottom of this pot I've got a layer of stones which will act like crocks to allow the compost to drain. That actually feels lovely. So that's that. Then let's put some grit in. So this is horticultural cotton grit, pink, not too much. Just give it a mix. There we are. Then the plant, a hole. Now I'm going to put on this. These roots are actually, I feel, a little bit lignified. They're not as delicate as the Sequoia roots. I'm a bit more confident to touch them. The Sequoia ones were literally breaking off as I touched them. Right. How high they start. Alright, push down a bit. Now some more compost. And then what I'm going to do is put a layer of composted bark over the top to act as a insulator. And then I'm going to put the decorative bark, no, the stone mulch, to protect the plants from squirrels, which are a problem in my garden. In fact, anything that isn't protected every time I touch these leaves I'm nervous that I'm going to break them off, that they're not as delicate as you might think. So I think putting this in a pot is a good idea because we're going to get a better availability of nutrients. So there we are, so that's covered up nicely. So let's get the mulch on. Protect it from frost if we get any. And then some pebbles. And it will stop these leaves getting wet and rotting as well. There we are. Done. Awesome. All right. That is done.